night is quiet for the first time in 10 years. The dark sky above the city of Troy glitters with stars. Just inside the walls, a ginormous wooden horse sits silently, brooding. A gift from the Achaeans, the Trojans believe it was left there in place of their warriors to signify a surrender and the end of a decades-long war. They could not have been more wrong. A barely audible creak disturbs the tranquility, followed by a series of thuds. Hushed voices whisper to one another, doing all they can to remain unnoticed. Shadows dart off in every direction. All is still. Then, chaos and calamity. The gates of Troy are open, Achaean soldiers flooding in by the hundreds, wielding torches, swords, and spears. Screams, shouts, and bellows ring out in the once peaceful night. Buildings burn and collapse, homes and shops are looted and destroyed. By morning, there is nothing left of the city. Everyone knows the story of the most famous trick in history, the Trojan horse. In order to fully understand its significance, however, we must look deeper into its purpose, the end of the Trojan War. The reason for the Trojan War, as explained in Homer's Iliad, is thus. Helen is the most beautiful woman in the world. She is highly sought after and has hundreds of suitors. When the time comes for her father to choose a husband for her, he fears that the rejected suitors may resort to violence to marry his daughter. He makes them all take an oath that they will respect and defend the marriage of Helen to whomever he picks. A young man named Menelaus is chosen, and all the other suitors return home. Meanwhile, the Greek gods are attending an event. All gods are present except Eris, who is the goddess of discord. She is denied entry. Furious, she tosses a golden apple into the tent where the event is happening. The apple is inscribed with the words, "To the fairest." Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera get into a heated dispute over who the apple belongs to, and decide to consult an impartial judge, Paris of Troy. Unfortunately, all three of the goddesses bribe Paris. And Paris ultimately picks Aphrodite and her promise of the most beautiful woman in the world, who, you guessed it, is Helen, who is married. Aphrodite is crowned the winner, and makes good upon her promise to Paris, abducting Helen and giving her to him. Menelaus is enraged and calls upon the rejected suitors to go retrieve Helen from Troy. Bound by the oath to defend the marriage, the suitors begrudgingly set out for Troy. They siege the city for 10 years, but are unable to break through the walls. That is, until Odysseus suggests the Trojan horse. The Achaeans deconstruct many of their ships and construct a huge horse from the wood. Most of the soldiers then jump in the remaining boats and sail behind a nearby island. Though accounts vary, somewhere between 10 and 50 of the best Achaean warriors hid inside the horse. After much debate, the Trojans bring the horse inside the city walls, and the rest is well-known history. There are many flaws to this story. Particularly, the involvement of gods and deities indicates that at least some portion of the story was falsified. In fact, it was thought for quite some time that the Trojan War itself was a legend. It was not until the 1870s, when the ruins of Troy were discovered and identified, that historians accepted that Troy existed. Evidence of burning and destruction combined with Achaean tools being found in Troy were enough for most archaeologists to declare the Trojan War did indeed occur. This, however, begs the question, what is the case for the Trojan horse? Sadly, it is very likely the Trojan horse never existed. Odysseus, said to be the demigod child of Athena, was probably a mythical figure, perhaps implying that his idea, too, was nothing more than a legend. Additionally, the earliest account we have of the horse is from Homer, who lived centuries after the theorized date of the Trojan War. Homer's inclusion of Greek religion and the sheer amount of time between when the war occurred and when Homer composed the epics has made many historians suspicious of its accuracy. Furthermore, the epics were told orally for another many decades, leaving much room for interpretation, reinvention, and error. Further mentions of the clever trick did not appear until decades or centuries later, the first of which is in Leshy's The Little Iliad in the 7th century BC. Only 30 lines of the epic remain, and most of the plot comes to us from Proclus's summary. Other notable references include the Fall of Troy by Quintus Semiramis, written in the 4th century BC, and Virgil's Aeneid, which was written in the 1st century AD. The legendary tale of the Trojan horse was already beginning to memorize authors and artists. One of the first visual depictions of the horse is on the famous Mykonos vase, which dates to 675 BC. Carvings, paintings, and other representations of the horse gradually become more prominent as time moves forward, serving as further proof for the significance of Odysseus' ingenious idea. This is not to say that the Trojan horse was not present in some way. Though there has been no archaeological evidence of the horse, it is still very possible that it was truly a horse, and the remains of the wood were just burned in the fire or decomposed after the Trojan War. If this is not the case, many historians and archaeologists, such as Francisco Taboni, speculate that the Trojan horse was actually a boat with the wooden head of a horse on its bow. Others, such as Carl Blegan, claim the horse, which eventually brought about Troy's doom, was just symbolic of Poseidon. Poseidon is the god of earthquakes, and there is evidence to suggest that the walls of Troy collapsed during an earthquake, allowing the Achaeans to be victorious. These researchers believe Homer was paying homage to Poseidon by including a horse, the animal the Greeks believed Poseidon created, as the eventual savior of the Achaeans. Some say that the horse may have been a war machine, or some kind of weapon that led to the downfall of Troy. Regardless of the nature of the horse, the constant speculation is a clear indication that the story of the Trojan horse still fascinates and enthralls people, just as it has been doing for thousands of years. The Trojan horse is significant because it marked the end of a decade-long conflict. It was the brainchild of the famed hero Odysseus, the subject of Homer's second epic, the Odyssey. It is a clear symbol of the innovative ideas and creative methods of Greek culture, yet also represents the brutal conflicts that plagued Greek history. Though we may never discover the true nature of this great structure, its influence on our society is immense. The Trojan horse has inspired countless authors, artists, and filmmakers. Its story is simultaneously entertaining, suspenseful, and teaches important lessons of caution and creativity. Even the poems from which our knowledge of the horse originates still captivate readers and intrigue historians. The legacy of the Trojan horse is alive and well today, even inspiring the popular idiom, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts." Whether a boat, a horse, or merely a legend, the Trojan horse has played an influential role in both ancient Greek and modern society. So just a little bit of a tour. This is the Trojan horse, and it's a horse, and he actually is hollow. So if we take this Greek dude, they go inside, and this is actually about the scale at which the horse would have been in comparison to this dude. He's about 4 inches tall, and this horse is 14 inches tall up here. So, pretty self-explanatory. These are wooden planks from the deconstructed ships, theoretically. It would have been sealed in the actual Trojan horse because obviously that would be suspicious, but I wanted to be able to show how his inside is hollow and how these men could fit inside, and when it was carried into the city, the men came inside with it. Again, it's pretty self-explanatory, but so, I'm gonna edit this out because I don't know what I'm saying. Dad's looking for a cheese stick.